by either the out-and-out communists and the Greens or the so-called libertarians, and the guy who ran the show here and now in Travis County is now the national leader of the Libertarian Party. So they're just completely stained with criminality and refusal to face real problems and real solutions. That is, freedom for farmers is a great solution to a whole lot of problems. Family farms, conserving topsoil to help feed our future, getting out of wars, these idiotic wars. If we just come to grips with freedom for farmers, around the world, we make a whole lot of progress.
Yeah, well, the point you raise about the Greens actually now being quite blasé, the communists, that was actually admitted by the Greenpeace founder, Patrick Moore, who resigned from Greenpeace partly in protest that the people who had now taken over the organisation were not really interested in environmental protection. They were more interested in advancing this communist feudalist agenda, which, as we have exposed vehemently over the past several years, is exclusively centred around eviscerating the middle class, imposing this post-industrial revolution and turning us back into serfs. So definitely, I mean, the modern environmentalist movement is nothing more than a watermelon. It's green on the outside, it's red on the inside, and that these kind of control freaks will dress themselves in any political ideology that suits them at their present time to further their brutal and tyrannical agenda, and that's what we've seen with the Greens advancing this current green fascism. But thanks for your call, Ronnie. Basically, what Grathwold was saying in that clip was that he asked Bill Ayers and the Weather Underground what would replace the collapse of the American government if a vacuum was to exist. And he basically said that the Weather Underground didn't have any plan for the economic, societal, the governmental restoration of a new government under their ideology. So that's why they said that they just let the Soviets or the Cubans or the Chinese come in. Now, I agree with your point that Ayers himself was never this big anti-establishment figure, which is why, in fact, he was hired and he became part of the political elite when he became an Illinois professor and this big educational establishment figure in America. So the elite certainly used Ayers for their own ends and to create this big idea of the Reds under the bed, which led to a lot of Americans giving up their rights and indeed was the start of this military-industrial complex movement in the 50s. Now, as I stated earlier in the show, I'm not saying that Ayers or the Weather Underground even plausibly would have been able to cause the collapse of America, which would lead to this communist invasion. I'm saying that that was their ideology, and the fact that Chris Matthews defends it while attacking grassroots Americans as political extremists is the height of hypocrisy. So it's not a question of whether Bill Ayers or the communist left-wingers at the time really intended to or had a chance of bringing in this communist revolution. It's the fact that Chris Matthews now gives them softball questions and basically doesn't even grill them on the fact that they supposedly wanted to bring Americans into re-education centers and kill them all. So, I mean, he cannot demonize American citizens as violent radicals while giving aid and comfort to people like Bill Ayers. And it's a fact that Bill Ayers was influential in starting Barack Obama's political career. That's on the record. Thanks for the call. Now we're going to Larry in Louisiana. Larry, you are on the air.
Hi, Paul. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, good. They had a war in a place they call the colonies here, and against what they said was the crown. Now, they teach the children, they call the American children, that they won this revolutionary war. What do they teach the children in England, Britain, about who won that war?
I'll answer that after the break, Larry. We're coming up now on a break, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes. This is the Alex Jones Show. We're going to squeeze in more of your calls after the break. This final segment of the first hour of the Alex Jones Show. This is Paul Joseph Watson sitting in for Alex. We had a caller before the break asking how the American Revolution was taught to British children in British schools. From my experience, the American Revolution is not taught up until high school. Certainly the courses I took at university, college level, there was no option to study the American Revolution. Basically, it's completely ignored. The reason I left university eventually was because they were teaching the fact that Lenin and Stalin were basically brilliant and that everything they did was saintly. So that was a good reason to leave. What concerns me, as is seen in Alex's video, The Road to Tyranny, is the fact that FEMA now teaches law enforcement personnel that the Founding Fathers were terrorists. And this ties into the Mayak report and how anyone who believes that the Constitution isn't being followed, as Chris Matthews also smears us, are violent radicals. So we're going to go to the next call now, which is Miguel in New York. You are on the air.
Hey. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, what's on your mind?
What are we going to do after they take down the internet? Because I have my friend co-host a website, and we're not conspiracy theories. We just cover the facts. We just cover the facts that laid it out. So what are you going to do when they implement internet too?
Well, basically, they're going to first bring it in by censoring websites. They're not going to bring down the entire internet. They're just going to try and require people to get a license to operate a website. And if it comes to that, we're just going to have to go back to the old-fashioned methods. There's a call-in line for people to listen to the Alex Jones show. We'll still be on conventional radio if they don't shut that down. And it's basically going to go back to the days of pamphleteering and magazines and newsletters, I guess. But I don't see them getting that through. There'll be a massive resistance against it. And the way things are going, they have no momentum with which to push it through. Well, thanks for the call. We've got to move quick, so we're nearing the end of the hour. And it's Janice in Texas. Janice, you're on the air.
Hi, Paul. We moved to central Texas, like in the middle of the hill country, and I look after my mom, who's like older. We were seeing these things in the sky, and we thought they were like UFOs, whatever. And they're not. And I was just, let me finish here. I was at the gas station, and I saw this guy that was filling up all these gas tanks in this weird travel truck, and it said travel search. And I was like, what on earth sort of vehicle is that? And I asked him, I said, what's travel search? What do you do? And he said, oh, we look for people. And I said, you look for people? And he said, yeah. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, we run drones. There are drones. They're all over Texas. I mean, they're out every night. I'm just calling. I mean, I'm scared to death to even call because I see them outside, and I'm just saying, it isn't coming. It's here.
No, you're right. I mean, there's no doubt that drones for law enforcement are already being practiced and indeed used in major American cities. Indeed, today, as we discussed earlier, it was announced that Predator drones would be used for law enforcement. So there's no debate as to whether that's happening and that they're preparing for it. And it's going to be the next phase of this surveillance process against the American people, which is almost exclusively circled around making people afraid, making people scared, so that they're scared to even speak out in the first place. So you just have to get past the fear and go ahead and exercise your freedoms anyway, because if you do so, then the only step they can then take to stop that is, by incarceration, and that will then expose them as the tyrants that they are. Thanks for the call, Janice.